Hi guys, welcome back to Explorer Maker YouTube video. In this video, we're going to be restoring this Nintendo 3DS which I bought from Jiji in Nigeria. Jiji is an online store in Nigeria where buyers and sellers meet to exchange goods and services. So I bought this Nintendo 3DS from Jiji, which was 40. The seller explained to me that it was working, but suddenly it stopped turning on. So the Nintendo 3DS came with a game cartridge. I think this game made it more expensive because I bought it 25,000 naira. It came with a FIFA 12 Nintendo cartridge and also an SD card, 2 gig SD card. The Nintendo 3DS has internal storage and also support 2 gig extra storage SD card. So I think these accessories made it more expensive. This game is 10 years old. It was released at the year 2011 and also it came with a 4.6 volt Nintendo charger. I think all these accessories worth the price I got it. So I tested the charging port to make sure it was fitting where it was not slacking or shaking, and it is really fitting well. So now let's know what's the problem with this Nintendo 3DS. So I tried turning it on by pressing the power button, but it did not turn on. No indicator light of it turning on. Then I brought my extension and brought the 4.6 volt Nintendo charger to try powering it on with the charger, and the same, I got no result of it turning on. I think this problem would rather be the battery is faulty or it's from the motherboard of this Nintendo. So it has 4 Phillips screw at the back of it. So I'm going to be losing the first Phillips screws and taking off the back cover. This back cover is a little fragile, so I have to take my time to lift it up not to break it. So this is it. Now we have access to the battery. This battery, I think it has been touched because the paint on the body has faded out. So I think it was removed earlier by someone else. So now we are going to try boosting the battery with a battery charger. This battery charger charged from 2 volts to 4 volts. So I'm going to try boosting this battery. So after 2 hours charging the battery, I think the battery is fully charged. Let me check how many volts the battery is reading. So I connect the minus terminal to the black one and the positive to the red one, and it is reading 4.18 volts. I think this is very good. So guys, I tried turning it on with the fully charged battery, but it won't turn on. So I think this is not the battery issue, it's from the panel. So I removed the game from the slot and also removed the pen for the touch screen and the SD card, the 2 gig SD card. So it has 10 Phillips screws at the back of it. So we are going to be taking it off before we have access to the motherboard. This took a lot of time because some of the screws are somehow worn out. So I have to take my time to lose it. So now there's also an additional screw at the game slot, a tiny screw. This screw is different from the other. So I use my prying tools to lift up the case gently from the board because I don't want to damage any flex cable inside it that I can't see right now. So this took some time, but I think the time it took worth it to prevent me damaging something. I noticed that the arrow and L is connected to the case, so I was lucky enough not to damage it. So I just disconnected it gently. I think the arrow is already disconnected because I did not disconnect it by myself. So these are 2 Phillips screws holding the analog controller. So I took it off, and then I need some access to pull it up, but I think the volume button is blocking it, so I have to pull out the volume button, then I can have access to pull this thing out. So I use my prying tools and then pull it out. Then it has a flex cable connected to the motherboard. I have to remove it gently not to rip out the flex cable. So it has two screws holding the SD card slot. So I have to take that off and then remove it from the board. This took some time because it has gum beneath it. So I have to use this prying tools to lift it up gently. So now I've removed the screws that I can see. Now it's time to remove some of the small components connected to the motherboard, and also remove some of the flex cable connected to the motherboard. This flex cable, it's a little difficult to remove because they are tiny, and I won't want to rip them off because most of them can't be replaced in Nigeria, because I don't know where to get the replacement part. And this game is a bit old. It won't be easy to find the spare part. So I have to take my time to disconnect the flex cable. So it has 4 Phillips screws holding the board. So I took it off, and now I have full access to lift up the motherboard. I noticed that the motherboard was not pulling out completely. Then I saw this flex cable connected to it and then disconnected it. So now this is the motherboard, and I'm just going through the motherboard to check if there's any component. So it took me some time diagnosing the motherboard, checking if there's any component that is not properly connected. Then I noticed that the battery terminal was weak. The soldering joint has been loose. So I resoldered the joint of the terminal. So I think that was the problem which was causing it not to turn on. It was not supplying power. So I'm going to be reassembling the whole part. I'm just going to be doing the reverse of what I did before. So I connected the flex cable at the top and then lie it on the plastic case. I did this gently and then bring out the flex cable which was beneath the motherboard that ought to be above the motherboard. Then I screwed the motherboard with the 4 Phillips screws and then connect the other flex cable. Reconnecting this flex cable also took me some time because they are fragile and I don't want to rip them off. And then I screwed the 2 Phillips screws at the slot beneath the SD card slot, and now I can reconnect other flex cable at that side. Now this is a flex cable I connected. These are all the flex cable I connected. Now I can connect the controller, the analog controller. So I connected the flex cable first and then also connected the SD card slot flex cable. So after connecting it, now I can lie my analog controller and then screw it to the board and also screw the SD card slot, and now I can reconnect the small component that I disconnected earlier. So this one I connected it, and the one at the top I reconnected it back. So now it's time to put the case. So I reconnected the R and L flex cable and then I covered it. Now I put the 10 Phillips screw, I rescrewed it. So I think this is getting to the main shape, and then insert the battery and covered it with the back cover and then screw the 4 Phillips screws. Now I inserted my SD card and then I put my pen. So this thing is back to life. Wonderful. I think I just solved the problem. It turned on immediately I turned it on. So now I'm going to be inserting my FIFA 12 into the game slot, and then it showed FIFA 12. The slot is working perfectly well, and now I'm trying the 3D camera So this is the inner camera. So now this is the outer camera. It's working perfectly fine. Whoa, click the subscribe button.